Welcome in to the Printfest DFS podcast. I'm your host, Justin Rue, and this is my buddy Scott. And we're going to be walking through the Draftkings Week 6 slate. A little bit about us. We're both Draftkings cash game grinders. We don't play on FanDuel. We don't play on Yahoo, especially FanDuel after what happened last week. I mean, I don't even play over there, but Scott, you want to talk about what happened over there?
Yeah, I mean, technically I play FanDuel, but not really. I throw 20, $30 into it each week just for fun. I mean, the pricing over on FanDuel is just very broken at the moment, and I don't know why they haven't made it tighter. I mean, you could just literally just jam everyone in.
It's a pick 'em. It's absolutely just a pick 'em. I mean,
It
draft
really
is much more competitive. You actually have to think about who you want to play each week. You can't just say, "Oh,
you can't jam it on the dudes.
I can just play this guy. I'm going to play Devontae Adams. I'm going to play Mike Evans. I'm going to play Lamar Jackson." It's just, yeah. So yeah, we're going to be talking about DraftKings, the main slate. We got 11 game slate here, and we're going to talk about 3 of the highest total games on the slate. We're going to talk about the Falcons, Vikings. We're going to talk about Houston and Tennessee, and we'll finish up with the Packers and Bucks, and then we'll get into our favorite plays of the week, position by position, and then we're going to close with we're going to call them our windmill plays. And this was created when what was it, week 4, when the Browns played against the Cowboys. Can't remember if it was week 3 or week 4. Can't remember, but basically we both played Odell in cash, and Odell was only like 15% owned. So we're like, oh man, here we go. Like, these fish are fading Odell. He's 15% owned against the Cowboys. And so he's going off. He's already got like 27 points. It's the fourth quarter. The Browns are up by like 2 touchdowns. And Odell gets it. There's like 5 minutes left in the game. Odell gets a reverse. He starts taking out, like, oh man, this would be just a windmill. I was sitting there next to Scott when we were watching it. I was like, this is going to be a windmill. And he takes it around the corner, makes Jalen Smith break his ankles, runs into the end zone. And we're just printing. We are printing. So we're going to call this the Printfest DFS pod. And whoever we think is that windmill player, we're going to shout him out at the end of the pod.
And just like a general note for the public, if the Cowboys are playing a game on a Sunday, you play the X receiver against them. They're a window.
Always.
You just play them. You just lock it in. I don't care if it's Brashad Perriman. You just play him.
They just play at such a fast pace. And I don't know what they're going to do now with Dak out and with Andy Dalton in there, but I guess we'll see if they stay at their blistering fast pace and just bleed.
Rifle, man.
We'll see on Monday. So we're going to dive into this slate, and we're going to start with the 0-5 Falcons traveling to Minnesota to take on the 1-4 Vikings. Now, it doesn't sound like the most intriguing game, but for DFS, it has a 54 over-under. The Vikings are 4-point home favorites at a 29 implied total, and the Falcons have a 25 implied total. The Falcons' run D is 10th DVOA, and their pass D is 30th DVOA. Vikings' run D is 27th, and their pass D is somehow 8th. Not really sure on that one, but we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, so I guess just starting it off, I mean, this game has me a little bit perplexed because, I mean, the Falcons are just pathetic on defense. I mean, they allow the most fantasy points per game allowed to quarterbacks, 30.14 fantasy points a game. 30 points a game on average to quarterbacks. But, I mean, when we're talking about this game, I mean, we're talking about Kirk Cousins. I mean, no team in the NFL wants to just run and pound the rock the way the Vikings do. So, I mean, so on one hand, you have the worst defense against quarterbacks in the league, but then you have Kirk Cousins. So it's kind of like, I mean, you're never, ever going to want to play him in cash because there's, I mean, likely outcome is, I mean, what if the Vikings just get up early? I mean, we're going to end up with Kirk Cousins 23 pass attempts.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's just not going to be fantasy relevant. You're just going to lose money.
Yeah. So Kirk Cousins had 39. What do you have? 39 pass attempts last week against Seattle, because that's a high scoring shootout game. I cannot see them throwing the ball 39 times in this game. I mean,
the way that Atlanta's playing, I mean, I can just see this game easily. I mean, I can see them getting down 13, 14, nothing.
Yeah.
And then the Vikings, I mean, They're
The
just going to
Falcons have been horrid.
that ball to Alexander Madison. And
They've been horrible. And fundamentally, the Vikings want to run the ball. On early downs in the first half, they run the ball 53% of the time. That's the fifth run heaviest in the NFL. They fundamentally want to run the ball. And the thing is, the Falcons' pass defense, they allow explosive passes 12% of the time. That is the highest in the NFL. They get bludgeoned on deep balls, but are the Vikings going to pass enough to give Thielen and Jefferson and Irv Smith and all of these guys enough volume to be viable? I don't know. I think they lean on Madison. They're 4-point home favorites here. I don't think the Falcons have enough. Julio is going to be back. Dalvin Cook is out. We should note that for the Vikings. Julio is projected to be back, but I don't know how much Julio has left. I mean, I struggle with these guys that are on the age curve coming down. It's just I don't know. And Julio
these Falcon receivers, I mean, it's just kind of known when Calvin Ridley's beat up, he does not play well. If he's questionable coming to a game, fade him. Julio is always beat up historically, but he always just tends to play through these injuries. But lately, he missed last week, the week before he left early. It wasn't all that productive when he was playing. And so, I don't know, man. Julio might just be getting to the point where his body's just not holding up as much anymore, man. And I mean, we've seen how Matt Ryan struggled without Julio, a healthy Julio in the lineup. And so that gives me a little bit of pause in this game as well. So we have two quarterbacks who are set up in good spots.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just not sure either one's going to get there.
Yeah, and I want to note that. So Minnesota, they allow explosive passes 12% of the time as well, and so that's 31 in the league. Like both of these teams give up explosive passes at the league highest rates, and Calvin Ridley leads the league in air yards and end zone targets. I mean, his upside is unreal, but he's also 7,800 on DraftKings, and Julio is back. I mean, he's what 1,100 more expensive than Julio. So, I don't know how much Julio has left. But I do want to note also is that Minnesota has allowed 5 wide receivers to clear 90 yards against them. They've allowed Devontae Adams, they hit him for 156. MVS hit him for another 96. Khalif Raymond hit him for 118. Will Fuller for 102. And DK Metcalf hit him for another 93. So, I mean, Minnesota's beatable through the air.
Yeah, I mean, objectively, Calvin Ridley is in a great spot. I mean, you can see that with his price, 7,800.
Yeah.
I love absolutely for tournaments. I absolutely love them. For cash, I'm just not going to go there because if I'm going to pay up for someone at that price point, I'm going Devontae Adams.
Yeah.
Just elite target.
Yep, I'm with you.
But I mean, objectively, Ridley's in a great spot. I'm not going to get there. I think he's just a little bit too expensive. I think there's other guys that we'll be talking about who are better price per dollar plays, point per dollar plays. I'm sorry.
Yep.
So yeah, I mean, if we're on the running backs here with the Vikings, like we said, Dalvin Cook's out, Alexander Madison's 7,200, and I think that's a fine price. I wasn't expecting him to be priced up quite that much, but I mean, with the late pricing coming out this week from DraftKings, I guess it's not that all that surprising. So here's the thing. Somehow the Falcons are actually decent versus the run, right? As pitiful as their defense has been, they're only giving up 3.8 yards per carry.
Yeah.
However, they're giving up the second most targets to running backs, the most receptions to running backs, the second most receiving yards to running backs, and the most receiving touchdowns to running backs on the year.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, they're giving up.
I know we were saying, the Vikings really they don't seem to be dumping down to Dalvin. Yeah, so, but I mean, in this spot, I mean, with Dalvin Cook out, and we know that Madison's likely to get a heavy workload. I mean, upwards of 20, I don't know, 4, 5 targets to Madison in the passing game. I mean, I think he's just an absolute smash play. Price. I mean, just play the. Don't like if we think that's coming from. I mean, it just adds up for a smash spot for Madison today or this weekend.
Yeah, I mean, the Falcons have given up, adding to what you said, the Falcons have given up 10 targets per game to opposing running backs, 8.6 receptions for 63 receiving yards. I mean, that is ridiculous. So, I mean, they're giving up 29 points per game to opposing running backs, which is 7th worst in the league. So, Alexander Madison is the lock play, and we'll get to him. We'll get to him over at running back here in a minute. So, moving on to the next game, we're going to talk about the Titans and the Texans. So, the Texans are 1-4. They're traveling to Tennessee, to Nashville to take on the 4-0 Titans here. And so it's a 53.5 over under. Titans have a 20.5 implied total, and the Texans have a 25 implied total. The Texans run D, as we know, is absolutely garbage. They have a 26th DVOA against the ground, against the run, and they are 12th against the pass. Titans are 19th DVOA against the run, and they are 11th DVOA against the pass. So this is another game where we get the Titans that are home favorites, just like the Vikings, that fundamentally want to run the ball. On early downs in the first half, they run the ball 54% of the time with Derrick Henry. They want to be a ground and pound team. That's the 3rd highest rate in the league. They want to smash you on the ground, fundamentally. While Houston on early downs in the first half,
historically.
Yeah, so Houston on early downs in the first half, they throw the ball 61% of the time. That's the 3rd highest rate. So these are two teams that are kind of diametrically opposed in the way they want to attack. The Texans want to be a passing team. The Titans want to be a running team. So this would be an interesting game and see how it plays out.
Yeah, I mean, and just historically, when the Texans are down in games or projected to be down in games, that's where Deshaun Watson that's where he makes his money, at least for fantasy purposes. I mean, Watson just absolutely eats in these games where they're losing. I mean, we've seen it year after year after year.
Yep. Yeah, and I also wonder,
with Bill O'Brien gone now, I think that we see a little bit of a chip on Watson's shoulder. We saw it last week. And he was the windmill last week at quarterback. I mean, he pulled a 30-burger. I mean, it's another good spot. I mean, it's going to be a fast game, hopefully. I mean, there's nothing not to like about Deshaun Watson this week. There's really not.
The only thing is that he's not running as much as he used to. I mean, he's only averaging 14 rushing yards per game over his last 4. It's not great, but you got to think that comes back at some point. I mean, God. A couple more notes here on this game. This is the fastest paced game on the slate. Situation neutral. These teams combine for the 7th highest overall in the NFL. So Tennessee, they're running situation neutral 5th fastest in the league, and Houston's running 9th fastest in the league. So these teams are both wanting to play fast. They get the ball and they snap it, like they want to play. So Houston, they're averaging 56 plays per game on offense. Tennessee's opponents are averaging 66 plays per game. So we can expect Houston to get 10 or so more plays in this game. That can make a big difference, especially for a team that wants to throw the ball. Like I said, 61% of the time early down to the first half. This team wants to throw. So there should be some more volume for the Texans wide receivers. But they spread it around so much. They always have a new guy leading the team in targets each week, whether it's Cooks or Fuller or Cobb. I mean, they really bounce around so much. Watson doesn't really lock into any one player. So it should be a solid.
I mean, again, the only thing with Watson, do you want to pay that $7K price tag at quarterback?
Yeah.
I think we have the salary to do it this week. It's just about whether or not you want to go there.
He's in
I personally, I haven't decided myself if I'm going to get there or not. But I mean, this is just the spot of spots for Watson. I mean, playing him when they're dogs. I mean, it's just what you want, dude.
Yep. And their total's respectable. It's 25. It's not bad.
How you feeling? I will say I'm a little bit concerned about Ryan Tannehill in this game. I mean, the Texans just absolutely get trucked by running backs. I mean, looking back, week 1, CEH went 25 for 138 and 1. Week 2, the Ravens committee averaged like 7 yards a carry against them. Week 3, Connor 18 for 109 and 1 and 4 for 40 through the air. And then last week, Dalvin goes 27 for 130 and 2. And we know that Mike Vrabel just wants to give the ball to Derrick Henry.
Oh, absolutely. Like I mentioned.
I mean, I think the most likely outcome is we see 30 Derrick Henry carries in this game. And I know the game's going to be up in pace, but if the Titans get up at all, Houston, I mean, Derrick Henry has been very bad efficiency. He's had bad efficiency so far this year, but I mean, Houston's just getting trucked.
Yeah, Houston's giving up 5.2 yards per carry. I mean, they've been just blasted. They give up explosive runs on 14% of runs, and that's 28th, in the league. Houston is getting smoked on the ground, and Derrick Henry is going to get going at some point. He's going to get going at some point. So we'll move on. We'll come back to Derrick Henry when we go position by position. So the last game we're going to touch on here is the 4-0 Packers traveling down to Raymond James Stadium to take on the Tampa Bay Bucks, the 3-2 Tampa Bay Bucks. Packers are 1-point road favorites here with a 28 implied total. The Bucks 27 implied total, and the over/under here is 55.5. The Packers' run D is 25th DVOA, as same as their pass D is also 25th DVOA. Buccaneers' run D is 3rd, and their pass D is 4th. So this really comes down to the Packers' offense is amazing. Aaron Rodgers is playing like MVP caliber, like it's 2012 again, and the Buccaneers' defense is a top 5 defense in the league.
Yeah, I mean, I struggle with this game a little bit. So one thing to note is I believe the Bucks actually opened as a 3-point favorite in this game, and Vegas has moved the line all the way to Packers by 1.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing that does set up well for Aaron Rodgers is that this defense is a pass funnel. I mean, dating back to last year, the Bucks' run defense has been elite. I mean, just absolutely elite. And you combine that with Aaron Rodgers just with a giant chip on his shoulder. He's tired of everyone saying, oh, he's done, blah, blah, blah. They drafted Jordan Love. And you can go down whatever narrative street you want to with Aaron Rodgers. But the bottom line is this dude's just balling out. And I mean, he's getting Devontae Adams back this week. That's huge.
Massive.
So I probably won't go there in cash, but he's absolutely just a smash play. I mean, every week until he proves me otherwise.
He's a little expensive. We always want to play these quarterbacks, especially since we play cash games. We're cash game guys. We're single lineup guys. We don't play like a bunch of lineups out there. I think he's fine for tournaments just because his upside's massive. He's a little expensive for cash. We do have the money, and we'll get to a couple of these punt guys out there. But for a guy who doesn't really run, it's hard.
Also, like I said, he's a great spot, but he is a little pricey for someone who's not going to get that solid floor with his run game. So I mean, again, I probably won't go there. But if you want to play Rodgers, I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. You know what I mean? So
yeah. You also want to note that Tampa Bay, they're allowing explosive runs only 3% of the time. That's number 1 in the league. They're also allowing explosive passes only 7% of the time. That is number 3 in the league. This defense is very, very good. Green Bay, this is what I'm talking about, how it's like the unstoppable force meets the immovable object. Green Bay leads the league in yards per play at 6.8, and Tampa Bay, their defense is 3rd in the league at 4.9 yards per play. So this is going to be such a fun game, and I'm happy it's on the 4:00 slate. It's at 4:25, so this would be like an island game almost, with only I think it's the Dolphins and the Jets play at 4:00 as well. So this should be a really fun game to watch, and you're definitely going to want a piece of it in DFS. You do not want to be sitting there with no one left going and then seeing Aaron Rodgers is launching bomb after bomb to Devontae Adams and Aaron Jones is running into the end zone because he seemingly scores like 5 times a week. It's insane. So we'll come back to some of these players as we come back position by position. But we'll move on to
one thing I do want to talk about before we move on is that I think the game script in this game is going to be something that's very interesting to watch.
Yeah.
Because the Packers, in terms of fantasy points, they're giving up the second most fantasy points to running backs per game. But it's interesting because teams playing against them they're not seeing a lot of volume on the ground because the Packers are just trucking everyone.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So, I mean, we saw Dalvin Cook 12 attempts. Yeah, Dalvin Cook 12 attempts against them. Peterson 7, Kamara 6, Gurley 16, which was, that was a little bit of a jump. but we're seeing them give up so many fantasy points without a lot of volume against them because teams are just throwing. And but we know, I mean, Fournette's been a little bit beat up, right? I'm not sure if he's going to play or not. Is it going to
Shady
be
might come
Rojo's
back.
season?
I think Shady might come back. Yeah, I mean, like the Packers, here's the thing. The Packers only give up so 19 rushing attempts against them per game by running backs, but they're allowing 8.5 or 8.8 targets per game. So it's odd. Like they're not getting a lot of volume, on the ground against them, but they're getting so much volume through the air against them. They're giving up the second most fantasy points in the league to opposing running backs, and a lot of that is based on receptions. So can we say Rojo is going to be getting 4 or 5 targets? I don't know. I think Shady's coming back. Fournette might be back. And Rojo falls right in that price range where we have other guys we like. We like we like Dave Montgomery in that range, and we'll get to some other guys we like. Jonathan Taylor's right around there as well. But this game could shoot out, so should be a fun one here for 425 kick there. So we're gonna get to our favorite plays of the week. We're gonna go position by position, and we'll take a couple minutes on each play, and we'll kind of go back and forth. And I'm gonna start with my favorite play at quarterback, I believe, and it's gonna be Ryan Fitzpatrick. And this guy, we how we love Ryan Fitzpatrick. Now I'm gonna go to this Lord Reeb stat. Everyone knows Rich Rebar. Shout out to the worksheet. So Ryan Fitzpatrick in his last 16 games, he's been a top 12 fantasy scorer in 11 out of those 16. Like this guy he's back. Like Ryan Fitzpatrick he's a good fantasy quarterback, and he's a good real life quarterback right now too. So the Dolphins are home favorites with the 28 implied total. Ryan Fitzpatrick is averaging 27.4 DraftKings points per game in his last 4 games. I mean, he's averaging 8.2 yards per attempt. And the biggest thing that I really like about him is that he has a solid floor. He's averaging 28.3 rushing yards per game over his last 4. This is solid. Like, this is a guy who has a decent floor from the rushing. And then you add in the matchup, and, the Jets are just absolutely atrocious, and they're giving up 8.3 yards per attempt to opposing quarterbacks, 21 points per game in their 31st DVOA. I mean, 5,900 it's tough to get away from Ryan Fitzpatrick. I do like his running back, and we'll get to that here in a couple minutes. Yeah, I love Ryan Fitzpatrick.
Yeah, I mean, Ryan Fitzpatrick at 5,900, the price is good. It's right there in that mid-tier of quarterbacks. I mean, he's just one of the most fun players in the NFL, in my opinion. I just love this guy. He just doesn't care. He just goes on the field, slings it, and just puts up points, man. And I mean, a rule of life, just play people against the Jets. I mean,
it's the Jets, yeah. Come on, 28 implied total.
Back them up. Huge. Yeah, I mean, Fitzpatrick is far and away my favorite quarterback play on the week. He's my default cash quarterback, and I really don't see myself pivoting from that spot. So, I absolutely love the take. I'll throw another guy I like in, not as much as Ryan Fitzpatrick, but I do like myself from Gardner Minshew this week. In fact, I like Gardner Minshew every week. I mean, he just straight up gets there every week. He's gotten 20-plus fantasy points in 4 of the 5 games this year. I mean, Detroit's averaging 20.76 fantasy points to quarterbacks this year. And the thing is, some of the teams they played, the Saints, Packers, Cardinals, they want to run the ball, right? I mean, they do. And, I mean, the good thing for Minshew is James Robinson only has 2 red zone touches this year.
Yeah, they're throwing a lot in the red zone.
9 of Gardner's 10 touchdowns this year have come in the red zone. So when they get down there, they're just going to give the ball to Gardner and say, get it done.
Yeah.
And against this terrible, terrible Detroit defense, I mean, we're projecting it to shoot out. There's a little bit of a pace issue.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, just for the price, I mean, I absolutely love the play. He just gets there every week. He has a little bit of rushing floor, not as much as I think people were hoping for. I think he's averaging something like 18 rushing yards a game.
Yep.
So we'd like to get that a little higher. I mean, if he runs one in, that's just an absolute smash. So I love the spot for Gardner. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, my only concern there is pace, like you mentioned. It's like the second slowest pace game on the slate. but it's projected to be a shootout. There's gonna be a lot of points scored here. The only other thing is that it's possible DJ Shark could be out. And in the game on Thursday night, when Gardner Minshew absolutely tanked, DJ Shark was out for that game. So is it possible that it's possible that Minshew could be struggling without DJ Shark? I don't know. Laviska is starting to step up into a more prominent role, but he's still a rookie. So I'm going to move on to another player I really like, and this is Ryan Tannehill, and it's in the fastest paced game on the slate. Ryan Tannehill in his 2 games versus Houston in 2019, he had 24.2 and 17.9 DraftKings points. They're home, 28 implied total. Again, same as Fitzpatrick. He's averaging 24.5 points per game over his last 4. Really solid. 8.5 yards per attempt. He's being efficient. And he's also got 21 rushing yards per game over his last 4. Like, he has a little bit of floor on the ground. And on Tuesday night, he ran in that touchdown. He almost ripped his knee up. I don't know if you saw that play. He jumped up to try to lay it up, and then came down and almost hyperextended his knee. That looked bad. But it's not a great matchup. Houston is 11th DVOA against the pass. They give up 19 points per game, 7.4 yards per attempt. It's not the best matchup, but I really think this game shoots out. It depends which way you think the game script's going to go. Do you think that Houston just gets bludgeoned on the ground and Tennessee, just like we mentioned before, wants to keep running it and just feed the ball to Derrick Henry 30 times? That would really suck the game flow out of this game. But if they connect on a couple deep balls early and get AJ Brown involved or Corey Davis or anybody, I don't know if Corey Davis is even going to play, but if they get a couple deep strikes early, we know Houston's going to fire right back. So Sean Watson has the firepower to make this game a shootout. I think this game has greater shootout potential, obviously, than the Jets in Miami, and I love my quarterbacks when they're in shootouts. So I love Fitzpatrick. I'm going to be debating this because they're the same price, $5,900. Fitzpatrick and Tannehill. I'll be debating that right up until lock, and we'll see what I end up with.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on the game script point. I think that really is going to decide what you do with this game. I had mentioned earlier that I do have a little bit of concern about the game script. I do think if the Titans get up, it's just going to be Henry run, Henry run, Henry run.
Yeah.
We're going to see 30 carries. But the thing about Ryan Tannehill, though, he has continued this efficiency from last year, and he's getting there most weeks. And most weeks they're just pounding the ball with Derrick Henry. I absolutely adore AJ Brown in the spot this week. I adore anyone who plays against him.
Well, we'll get to AJ Brown later on. We'll get there. Who's your other quarterback?
I'm fine with Tannehill. I probably just won't go there because I'm afraid of the game script.
Yeah.
But just in general, he's a good play. So.
Yep.
Moving on. The other quarterback that I like is actually on the other side of that Jacksonville-Detroit game, and it's Matt Stafford. And I'll tell you why I like him. The Jags have been pretty beat up. I know last week they were without their 3 best defensive players, and C.J. Henderson, Miles Jack, and Josh Allen.
Yep.
Now, I do believe that Henderson and Jack both got a full practice in today. And so that sounds like they're likely to play, but, that's something to monitor. We saw last week, that was the talking point. Jacksonville's beat up. Watson's a windmill spot, and
we both played Watson last week too, and he just smashed for us.
Right. And so the thing that's really enticing about Stafford is that if you remember, Galladay missed the first 2 weeks with that injury. He comes back and doesn't play his full allotment of stats, and you can see that based on Matt Stafford's ADOT. Last week, Galladay, or I guess it wouldn't have been last week, the week before the bye. Before the bye, Galladay finally got his full allotment of stats in, and we saw Matt Stafford's ADOT jump to 11.
Yep.
And so, if that's what we're going to see in a game like this, we're already suspect about Jacksonville's defense, especially the secondary. I think it just adds up to Stafford in a smash spot. Again, he's not going to provide any type of rushing floor whatsoever, so he is going to have to throw 2-3 touchdowns to get you there. But in this spot, and Galladay just has an elite matchup.
Yeah, we'll get to Galladay. We'll get there. Yeah, Stafford. Yeah, Jacksonville's giving up 8.8 yards per attempt, 32 DVOA. They are the worst pass defense in the NFL. Detroit has a 29 implied total. Like I said at the top here, the only trepidation there is the pace in that game, and he's on the road, and he doesn't really run. That's really it. Other than that, I mean, Stafford he's a solid play. I think he's a tick behind Fitzpatrick and Tannehill in my book, just because he's a little more expensive. He's 6,300, but he's fine. I'm perfectly fine with Stafford. If I end up him in cash, I'm fine.
I agree. I think Fitzpatrick is the guy for me right now. But if you're not comfortable with that, I think Stafford, Tannehill, Gardner, they're all fine pivots.
Yep. Yeah. So I think we hammered the quarterback position pretty solid there. We're gonna move on to running back, and I think we both believe there's two running back plays that I think we just lock in, and the first one here is Mike Davis, and it's just because his role is outrageous. I mean, it is just unreal. It's basically like 90% of CMC. I mean, it's really wild.
He's 90% CMC with a 2K discount.
Right. And I mean, so look, they're at home. Yeah, the total's not great, and it's a slower paced game. Sure. They're 1.5 point favorites. He's averaging 22.7 points per game over his last four. 77% of snaps, 19 touches per game, and a 22% target share. That is ridiculous. A 22% target share at the running back position is unreal. And he's also averaging 2.4 opportunities, so that's targets and carries inside the 10 per game. That is very, very solid. For reference, we all know how many carries Derrick Henry gets inside the 10 per game. He averages 3.8. So that's not that far behind Derrick Henry. Matchup is fine. I mean, it's not a great matchup. The Bears are averaging, they're giving up 4.5 yards per carry. So, it's not a great matchup. It's fine. But Chicago does also allow an explosive run 15% of the time, which is 31st in the league. And Mike Davis, this is another stat I found. I think this was from Lloyd Reed as well. So Mike Davis has forced a missed tackle on 35.5% of his touches. That leads all players with over 30 touches. I mean, like it's not just his role, like he's good too. Like it's crazy. Mike Davis, I'm not going to really spend too much more time on it. Just play him.
Yeah, I think you can argue that he is the highest floor on the slate in terms of running backs. I mean, he's just so safe. You're going to get 6 to 8 targets. It's coming in addition to however many carries he's going to get. So, I mean, the floor is there. And, I mean, if he falls into the end zone once or twice, I mean, it just pants off.
It's over. Yeah, Mike Davis, just play him.
Just lock him in and move on. That's all there's to it, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I think the second lock of the week at running back, we talked a little bit about him earlier, is Alexander Madison, 7,200. Again, Dalvin Cook's out. The Falcons are giving up the stone worst. They have the stone worst passing defense against running backs in the league. They're giving up the most targets, second most receptions, I think the second most receiving yards, and the most receiving touchdowns to backs out of the backfield. So, I mean, they're not dumping down much to running backs this year so far, but I mean, in this spot, I mean, if I can get 4 or 5 targets to Madison, I'm projecting somewhere between 18 and 20 touches. I'm not really afraid of the Mike Boone thing. I'm not really weary of that. So again, I think it just adds up to just a great spot. I mean, would you play Dalvin Cook at 7,200 in this spot? I think the answer is universally yes, you would.
That's the thing. Is like, yeah, Alexander Madison is not that much worse, and we know running backs, they're just so replaceable. Like, as long as he has if he has the same role as Dalvin Cook, which we're expecting, him to get about 20 touches with upside for more and all the goal line, he's just a smash. I mean, if he gets the same role as Dalvin Cook, yeah, he's just gonna smash.
And again, I mean, we said this earlier. The Vikings just want to smash the ball down the opposing defense's throat. I mean, they just want to run. That's all.
Yes, they want to run the ball.
If they get up at all in this game, it's just going to be run. And
yep,
so,
4-point favorites, 29 implied total. You just lock in Mike Davis, you lock in Alexander Madison, and which is so funny. If you told me week 6, you'd be like, oh yeah, we're locking in Mike Davis and Alexander Madison. I'll tell you, you're crazy. But I mean, here we are. So moving on, we'll talk about my we'll talk about one of my favorite guys here. He's not. I don't know. I don't think he's my third favorite running back play on the slate, but I do like him. And so it's gonna be Myles Gaskin. And man, it's weird. Like again, we talk about these guys and say, "Oh yeah, talking about playing Myles Gaskin." It's like if you had told me week one, yeah, we're playing. I'm gonna lock in Mike Davis, Alexander Madison, and Myles Gaskin. I would have told you you're crazy. But we're in the COVID season. Here we are. So Myles Gaskin. I want you to take away the name of the player and just listen to all of the data around the player. This player is 5,400. He's at home. They have a 28 implied total. They are 9-point favorites. This player has played 67% of snaps over the last 4 games. He's averaged 18.5 touches and a 17% target share. He's averaged 2.2 touches or opportunities inside the 10 per game. The defense that he's playing gives up 4.6 yards per carry and 31.5 points per game. He's 5.4K. Would you play that player?
Well, first of all, I'm just stuck on the fact that you said they're a 9-point favorite. Imagine the Miami Dolphins being a 9-point favorite in 2020.
Oh, I know. It's crazy. Like Myles Gaskin, yeah, like he's 205 pounds, but here's the thing: if Jordan Howard is out, which he was last week, Myles Gaskin is going to get the goal line, which he did. He scored a goal line touchdown last week against San Francisco. And here's the other thing. So Myles Gaskin, he has 9 carries inside the 10. That's only behind Aaron Jones, CEH, Alvin Kamara, Josh Jacobs, Todd Gurley, Darrell Henderson, Derrick Henry, and Zeke. So that's not that far behind like these top guys. And he's 4th in the NFL among running backs in receptions. Like this guy has 4 targets in every game this year. Like he's involved. He's not going to get game scripted out, especially since they're playing against the Jets. They're 9-point home favorite against the Jets. So, I could see him getting, he's, like I said, he's averaging 18.5 touches per game over his last 4. I could see him getting up to 20 here. If we see Jordan Howard's a healthy scratch again on Sunday morning, this is a really, really solid play. And I would probably elevate him over Dave Montgomery.
Yeah, I mean, before having this conversation, I was just off. I can't get past the name Myles Gaskin. I think that's not a problem. But you're throwing out these stats. I mean, 4th in the league in running back receptions. I mean, he's averaging 18.5 touches a game. I mean, 9-point favorite against the Jets. I mean, we know we just want to play everyone against the Jets.
I know.
$5,400 price tag is just. I mean,
17% target share. Like he's involved in the passing game bigly. He's not just like this clown. He's playing, 18.5 touches per game over his last 4. That's a solid sample size to say this guy is their lead back. And the fact that he's
getting what, 2.2 red zone touches a game?
Yeah. Inside the 10. Inside the 10 per game. That's like he has the role at the goal line if Jordan Howard's out. If Jordan Howard is in, I'll probably end up playing Montgomery, but I'm cool with Myles Gaskin at that price. You want to talk about
the number? He's underpriced. He's cheap. If you can get past the name Myles Gaskin,
he's a good play.
Right? Like if you took the name off that and you had those numbers at 5,400, it's just you throw the name Aaron Jones on there.
Yeah, I know. Right.
Anyone else other than Myles Gaskin, what I mean?
If this was the name Antonio Gibson, everyone would be like falling all over themselves to play him, right? So, you want to talk about Montgomery?
If the name was Chase Edmonds,
right? Anybody,
all over that, right?
Right. It's the name value. It's going to keep his ownership down, and I'm fine with playing him.
Yeah, I mean, I think you sold me a little bit, to be honest with you.
Here's the thing. The thing about DFS, especially cash games, is you want to lock in these high touch running backs. You want to lock in at least 20 touches from each of your running backs. He might get there. I mean, typically we're used to paying up. We're used to paying up for CMC. We're used to paying up for Zeke, Dalvin, Kamara. These guys aren't on the slate. Like they're not there. Yeah, Aaron Jones is there, but he's he's a part-time player basically with Jamal Williams, and we'll get to him here in a minute. But there's not like these blue chip players that are these bell cow guys on the slate. This guy, he's good enough for his price.
Yeah, I mean, like I said, I think you sold me on him, and I mean, that's a good transition if we want to move on to David Montgomery.
Yeah, let's talk about David Montgomery.
to similar price point, I have had a vendetta against David Montgomery since last year when I drafted him in fantasy, and she's absolutely crushed me, right?
He's terrible. He's so bad.
I mean, the spot is just. Here's the thing: if you're not going to play David Montgomery this week, you're not going to play him this year at
No,
all. Okay?
that's right.
It's the stone worst defense in the league against running backs. They're giving up 36 points a game. And I mean, ever since so Tariq Cohen towards ACL a couple weeks ago, we've seen 6 and 8 targets for David Montgomery in each of those weeks. I mean, if you're telling me that we're getting David Montgomery, who's going to get 16 carries plus, 6 targets against the stone worst running defense in the league, I mean, it's ugly. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and try to tell you it's not. I mean, his floor is pretty low. I mean, I'm not confident that those targets are going to come. But I mean, the numbers add up. And I mean, he's, what is he, 5,800, 5,900?
Yeah, 5,800. Yeah.
What's your projected game script in this game? Because I mean, I'm having a little bit of trouble in this game. I mean, Carolina's been a lot better than I think people expected them to be.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't want to like Montgomery, but it's hard not to.
Yeah, he's not going to get game scripted out, right? Because the last 2 weeks without Tariq Cohen, he's played 86 and 82% of snaps. He's also ran 35 and 31 pass routes. Like this guy, he's not going to get game scripted out. He's 5,800. Like I said, I mean, this is going to be the biggest debate. Is going to be Gaskin versus Dave Montgomery. My thing is Dave Montgomery. I do not want to play 2 running backs against each other. Yeah, they're both great plays. Mike Davis and Dave Montgomery. That is, they're both good plays in a vacuum. But you play these guys against each other. I mean, this is a slow-paced game. It's a 44 implied total. Like this is not going to be some kind of back and forth shootout. And I mean, both guys are involved in the passing game, so it's fine. But I really struggle to play 2 running backs against each other in cash. But I mean, the spot for Dave Montgomery is just so solid.
You hear me?
Oh yeah.
You were frozen.
Oh, was I? Oh, my bad. What'd you hear me say? Where'd you lose me?
I think you were saying he's not coming off the field. Oh, you don't want to play opposing running backs against each other. Low total game.
Yeah, it's a slower pace, low total game. It's hard to play 2 running backs against each other. They do both catch the ball. I mean, this is the best spot we're going to get for Dave Montgomery all year. So if you're going to play him all year, this is a spot. Leave it at that. So I also want to. You want to have anything else on Dave Montgomery?
Here's the. Yeah, if I play him cash and I lose money, I don't think I'll be able to recover.
He's just so bad.
If Dave Montgomery costs me money, I already have a vendetta against him. I mean,
terrible, right?
But I mean, it's a good spot. So let's just move on before I tilt.
Yeah. So I'm going to bring up Aaron Jones. We both have one more running back here to bring up, and we'll head on to wide receiver. So Aaron Jones, I mean, look, like we mentioned at the top when we mentioned this game, is that it's a tough matchup, for Aaron Jones. But they did, the Buccaneers did lose Vita Vea, so that might help Aaron Jones with his runs up the gut. But look, I mean, yeah, he's really only a part-time player. Like it tilts me so much seeing Jamal Williams out there on the field like all the time. I mean, Aaron Jones is only playing like 57% of snaps, but he's still getting 18 touches. He's had 18 touches in every game this year. I mean, this game is probably going to be a shootout, and we know we want running backs in shootouts. We want all the players in shootouts. He's 7,600, so he's the highest price running back on the slate. He's averaging 29.1 Draftkings points per game in his last 4. Like, this guy crushes on only 57% of snaps. He's averaging 20 touches per game and 19% target share. And the biggest thing, he's averaging 144 yards from scrimmage over his last 4 games. I mean, Jesus, this guy is unreal. And I mentioned how Derrick Henry's getting 3.8 opportunities inside the 10 per game. Aaron Jones is getting 3.75. That's second on the slate, right behind Derrick Henry. Like, his touchdown upside is ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. But, the matchup, like we mentioned. Buccaneers are giving up 2.56 yards per carry, 23 points per game to opposing running backs, and their third DVOA against the run. It is a difficult matchup on the ground. He's going to have to get something through the air. I also do want to mention Aaron Jones in his last 5 games with Adams and Jamal Williams both healthy. He averages 15.8 carries and 4.4 targets. So take that for what it's worth. A little bit lower than what he's been getting without Devontae Adams.
Yeah, so here's the thing for me, right? So the Bucs, they are pass funnel. They have a very good run defense, right? But they actually are giving up the fourth most receptions of running backs per game, right?
Yep.
And I think another interesting point in this game is going to be how involved Jamal Williams is. So I believe with and without Devontae Adams healthy and in the lineup, I think that Aaron Jones has something like a 14% target share with and without Adams. So I don't think that changed. Now, Adams was out last week despite his wishes to play, and I think he expressed that on Twitter a little bit. We saw Jamal Williams' targets jump to 8.
I know.
Okay, and that was far and away his season high. So here's my thing: we've seen evidence this year that Aaron Jones doesn't take a hit in his passing work with Devontae Adams being on the field. I think it's probably more likely that we see less work from Jamal Williams with Adams back than a hit to Aaron Jones. And I'm a little bit, like you said, I'm a little bit worried that he's not going to be able to get much going on the ground. But I think that if we get 4 or 5 targets for Aaron Jones, in addition to his massive touchdown equity. I mean, it feels like every week we're saying, "Oh, I mean, there's regression coming for Aaron Jones, big time." It just never gets here.
He just never gets. He's just
So he's just such a stud. I mean,
I know.
Aaron Jones playing 80% of the snaps. I mean,
oh my God, dude! If they ever gave him like the Mike Davis role, this guy would be better than Christian McCaffrey in fantasy.
yeah, I mean that's his best comparable. I'm pretty sure on Player Profiler. I think it's Christian McCaffrey. I mean, dude's just a dog.
Yeah,
he's just a dog. And again, do you want to pay up for that on this slate? I think there's better options, so I don't know that I will, but I'm definitely not going to fight anyone who wants to just lock him in. I mean, I'm a believer at this point. I mean, until he proves me otherwise, I mean, he's just a baller.
Yep. You want to talk about Derrick Henry?
Yeah, I mean, I know you're not going to like this discussion, but I'm going to try to convince you here. Here's the thing, man, and I know I said this earlier, Houston is just getting absolutely pounded on the ground. And we know Mike Vrabel just wants to pound the rock with King Henry. I mean, his mask says give the ball to Derrick Henry, right?
Yeah.
And I mean, I'll repeat these stats again. Giving up 5.2 yards per carry. They gave up 130 yards and 2 touchdowns to Dalvin Cook. 109 yards and a touchdown to Dusty James Conner. I mean, the Ravens are running back by committee, but they trucked them for like 6 or 7 yards a carry. And then week 1, CEH in his first ever game went for 138 and 1. And I mean, if we see any uptick in efficiency from Derrick Henry, I mean, if he averages 4 yards a carry and gets 25 touches like he usually does, I mean, that's 100 yards right there. I mean, he's as likely as anyone on this slate to hit the bonus. His touchdown equity is massive. Like you said, he's getting 3.8 attempts in the 10 zone per game. That is absolutely elite. It's top of the slate. I mean, and I love the game script for him because Houston's defense is terrible. I mean, the Titans are just objectively a better team. They're likely to get up in this game. And I just think he's an absolute smash play. I mean, here's the thing with him. If he doesn't get in the box, he's not going to get there. He might get 2 targets in this game if we're lucky.
That's right.
Now, maybe he'll take a 5-yard screen to the house. I mean, that'd be great. But chances are he's going to have to get in the box at least once for him to hit value. So I absolutely understand why people won't play him. It's definitely risky. It's not safe. He is a very low floor. But, man, the upside that this guy brings each and every week. And I just love myself some King Henry. So, again, I don't know if I'm going to get there, but he's definitely my player pool right now. Yeah. I just think it adds up for an absolute feast for the King.
Yeah, I mean, if you're projecting touches on this slate, you have to project him right up there at the top. It's just that he has no passing game role at all. I mean, he's getting like 1 or 2 targets a game. It's basically nothing. And they're only 3-point favorites. So it's like if we get a bomb to Cooks or Fuller or Stills or something like that on the first drive for Houston, this could just be a shootout, and there's like no Derrick Henry all game.
Yeah, I
So
mean, I mean, if this game shoots out, if Houston gets up early, and I know that Houston has normally they start games pretty slow, right? Watson gets going as the game moves along. But if that doesn't happen, say they come out, Watson throws a bomb to Brandon Cooks, they get up 7-0, it's punt,
yep.
Houston puts up a field goal, they're up 10-0. How many are we going to get? And that game script flips. So I think this game is going to be very interesting. I think, especially for tournaments, picking one way or another, going King Henry, bringing it back with Cooks and Fuller, Fells, Cobb, whoever, or vice versa. I mean, you could just load up Tannehill to A.J. Brown. I mean, there's a lot of different ways to go in this game, and it could definitely go poorly for Derrick Henry quickly, but the upside, man, I'm just enamored with it.
Yep. Yeah. So we're gonna move on to our wide receiver plays, and I don't know if he's my favorite, but we'll get to my favorite in the windmill plays here at the end. But Devontae Adams is definitely up there. His floor is ridiculous. It's just like this guy, and he's fully healthy. He practiced full. He's ready to go. I mean, yeah, they're on the road, but they have a 27 implied total. I mean, the dude is averaging 25 points per game. Like, he's only played 2 games, and then one game, I think he had 44 week 1, and then he had maybe 6 points or something, and he was hurt for half that game with his turf toe or whatever he had. So I mean, this guy's ridiculous. He's averaging 10 targets a game. And one of my favorite things about Devontae Adams that he always does is he's always getting targeted in the end zone. He averages 1.5 end zone targets per game in his only 2 games played. And like I said, he only played half a game in the other one. So, and that's the best on the slate. 1.5 end zone targets per game is just wild. Like, you have to think of, if you get 1 end zone target per game, and the average catch rate in the NFL is 67%, right around there. That means you have about a 67% chance of scoring a touchdown if you get an end zone target, and he gets 1.5 per game. So this guy's touchdown upside is the best on the slate. It's a projected shootout. Yeah, the Buccaneers are decent. Carlton Davis should be, doing battle with Devontae Adams, but the Buccaneers give up a 71.1 catch rate. That's about 5% above league average. So, I think the floor is just so high with Devontae Adams. And I also want to note, out wide receivers against Tampa Bay, they held Michael Thomas to 3 for 17. But Robbie Anderson hit him for 9 for 109. Keenan Allen hit him for 8 for 62, and Allen Robinson hit him for 10 for 90. So these guys, 9, 8, 10 receptions, they're getting peppered, even with Carlton Davis there. So I'm cool with Devontae Adams. He's 8K. Yeah, he's he's the highest priced wide receiver on the slate, but you need to have exposure to this game. I'd rather get it through Devontae Adams versus Aaron Jones.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, his red zone work is just ridiculous. I mean, if I was to put money on any given player to score in any given week, it's Devontae Adams. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, Aaron Jones gets down to the 10 zone, and his first 3 reads are Devontae Adams. It's okay. Adams not open. No, is he open yet? No, not yet. Is he open now? Well, I'm just going to throw it anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, any given week, Adams could get 15, 16 targets, and it will never shock me. I mean, he's this year's Mike Thomas. I really do believe that. I mean,
yeah.
And I've already seen a couple people on Twitter this week saying, "Oh, Carlton Davis. Oh, Carlton Davis." I can't imagine caring.
Get out of here with that.
I don't care who's battling Devontae Adams. I don't. I mean, sure, if you're telling me Carlton Davis is going to cover MVS or something, I say, okay, then I probably won't play him. But I mean, it's Devontae Adams, dude. I mean,
yeah,
he's just an absolute beast. I don't care who's on him. And like you said, this is it's a pass funnel defense, right? And with Aaron Rodgers just playing the best he's played in years, I mean, I just can't imagine Adams not smashing in the spot.
He has no competition. Alonzar's gone. MVS is not stealing any targets from him. Neither is Robert Tonyan.
Talk of this Robert Tonyan nonsense. I don't want to hear it.
Yeah, it's Adams.
He's just an elite wide out, and I mean, if for that, I would easily play him over Calvin Ridley at that price point. And I love Calvin Ridley this week.
Yep.
I love Calvin Ridley every week, but Devontae Adams Devontae Adams should probably be 9K.
Yep. Who you have?
Yeah, so I'm going to bring up my boy Kenny Galladay.
Yep.
I mean, talk about red zone target share. I mean, Matt Stafford he said, forget Marvin Jones, apparently. I mean, it's just all Kenny Galladay. And I mean, it just sets up great for Galladay. I mean, the Jacksonville defense just stone worse than the league against the pass. We talked about earlier, Stafford's ADOT jumped up to 11 with Galladay playing his full allotment of snaps, excuse me. I mean, via Mike Clay's cornerback wide receiver shadow report, they've got some guy named Chris Claybrooks who's apparently going to be shadowing Galladay, and I don't know who that is. But what I do know is that the corpse of Brandon Cooks put up 6 for 136 and 1 on him.
Yep.
So I don't really think I need to say more than that. That sets up extremely well for Kenny Galladay.
This guy's 170 pounds, by the way. Chris Claybrooks, he's 170 pounds. Galladay is 218 pounds. He's 6 foot 170. This guy's a string bean.
Never heard of him.
He's on, and Galladay is 6'4", 218. Good luck.
And I mean, Kenny Galladay is 6,200. I mean, he's looking somewhere between 8 to 10 targets in all likelihood. If this game does shoot out, I mean, the upside's there for him to go 8 for 150 and 2. I mean, Kenny Galladay at any given time could break off a 60-yard touchdown. He's huge red zone threat. I mean, the writing's just on the wall for me with this one. I think it's just all there for him to just absolutely smash this week.
I agree. Also want to note Jacksonville has given up a 70.8 reception percentage or catch rate. Just awful, like we mentioned. 32nd DVOA, 8.8 yards per attempt allowed. And Galladay is getting 1 end zone target per game, like we mentioned. He's their red zone guy. So, yeah, I love Galladay, 6.2K. I want to bring up Terry McLaurin. Now, Terry McLaurin, he's underpriced. That is just the fact of it. He's underpriced. Yes, he has a tough matchup with James Bradbury. Yeah, I know James Bradbury hasn't given up more than 70 yards to an opposing wide receiver that he's covered. But if you look at weight opportunity rating, which is basically it's a combination of air yard share and target share. It's the best opportunity metric you can find for wide receivers and tight ends. Over the last 4 weeks, his weight opportunity rating is 0.8. That is the second highest on the slate. He's 5.7K. He's averaging 9.8 targets per game over the last 4, 17.9 points per game. He's running 40 routes per game, and he's averaging 89 yards. I mean, and again, this is a Giants defense that he's going against. It's 23rd DVOA against the pass, 7.7 yards per attempt. That's, a little below league average. And they're going up a 70.4% catch rate, which is, again, that's about 4 or 5 points below league average. And I also want to note, since we're talking about James Bradbury again, James Bradbury doesn't go to the slot. He only travels to the slot 9% of the time, and Terry McLaurin goes to the slot 28% of the time. So he should be able to shake free of Bradbury just a little bit. Yeah, I mean, it's not the best. It's not the best, matchup there with Bradbury, but 5.7K is just too cheap for his opportunity that he's getting. It's just unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to look at last week and say, oh, well, Bradbury locked up Amari Cooper. But the one thing we know above all else about Amari Cooper is that he, from time to time, can just disappear. Yeah. And so I don't really think that's a great basis to look at Terry McLaurin from. I mean, that Dallas offense also, you have CeeDee Lamb, Michael Gallup. Apparently Cedric Wilson's a thing. You always have Zeke. There's a lot of target competition there as well, right? You look at Washington, and it is just Terry McLaurin.
That's it.
Even Sims is on IR. I mean, we have seen nothing from Antonio Gandy Golden. This Isaiah Wright guy, not worried about that. I mean, Logan Thomas, I think that experiment's done with. I mean,
he's done.
I think the only thing that you could worry about in this game is what do you make of Alex Smith? But I mean, how does this game end? How does Terry McLaurin come out of this game without at least 8 targets?
Yeah, no, I know. I think I do have a stat here so Kyle Allen should be getting the start here. And DJ Moore last year with Kyle Allen, he averaged 5.8 receptions for 84 yards and 0.3 touchdowns per game. So if you give me 5.8, so if you give me 6 receptions for 84 yards, probably not going to score a touchdown. I'm fine with that. 5 for 84 or 6 for 84.
I mean, he's
I'm fine with
underpriced.
that 5.7K.
I mean, that hits value. That's value. I mean, 5.7K, he's just grossly underpriced. I mean, at any given time, again, he could break off a 75-yard touchdown. I mean, he's just a great player, man. Great motor.
Yeah.
Bradbury's good, but I mean,
this is a young ascending player. He's only getting better.
There's just no target competition in that offense.
Yeah.
So I'm right there with you on Scary Terry.
Yeah. Who do you have?
I'm going to bring up Laviska Shenault. So I think the one thing to monitor here is DJ Chark's health, right?
Yeah.
So we're not really sure whether or not he's going to suit up this weekend. And I think that's going to be a big point of clarity to monitor because I don't think that I want to play him if Chark suits up. So he's sitting at 5,200. Now, he does get, in all likelihood, Desmond Trufant to follow him around on Sunday. Desmond Trufant just gave up 29.5 fantasy points to the Saints. And Laviska's one thing to note on Laviska is that his routes run have increased every single week from 18 to 23 to 31 to 34 to 35. And if we see DJ Chark sit, I think that's going to jump even more. Now, he was a little banged up early in the week, but I think that was just, a little bit of time off to kind of a
mid-season rest. He's good.
It's a mid. He's just proven that he's a good player as a rookie. I think he went 7 for 70 something last week. Now, I think they have gone away from the rushing game a little bit. When I was coming into this year, I like to compare Laviska Shenault to Cordarrelle Patterson, just in the way they play, or like a Deebo Samuel type, right? Where Laviska will get a couple carries, a couple in and around a game, which is valuable. I mean, if he gets 2 carries for 17, 18 yards in addition to 7, 8 targets, I mean, I think that's pretty valuable at 5,200 in a game where, I mean, Detroit just can't stop anyone right now, right? And like we said, when the Jags get down to the red zone, they want to throw. They want to throw. And if DJ Chark's there, that's just another weapon gone. And so in all likelihood, Laviska is going to be the first read. I'm not really worried about Chris Conley or Keelan Cole or Tyler Eifert or anything like that. So I think it's really going to be important to monitor the health of DJ Chark. And if he doesn't suit up, I think he's a really strong play at 5,200.
Yeah, I like Shenault. I do want to note there ADOTs in that offense. So, Chark, if we're expecting Chark not to play, someone's going to have to pick up in his role. Chris Conley, his ADOT in the last 4 games is 14.7. Keelan Cole is 18.9, and Laviska's getting the short stuff at 7.5. So, and Laviska, he's averaging 69 yards per game over his last 30 routes. I mean, he's basically a full-time player at this point. If we expect this game to shoot out, which I think we do, my only concern here is pace, like we mentioned at the top. I think he's a fine play. And what is he, 5,200?
I believe so.
5,200, yeah. That's the same price as the guy I'm about to talk about. We got to mention Chase Claypool here, and this is and here's why. If Deontay Johnson was playing, we would not be mentioning Chase Claypool. We're just chasing his massive game. We all know he had 4 touchdowns last week. Deontay Johnson's out, and over the last 2 weeks, when Deontay Johnson was basically he played like 3 snaps the last 2 weeks. He would come in for like 2 plays and then he's just out. I mean, he had a back injury last week, and then he had a concussion the week before that when he was hurt. And I had him in cash that week too. That hurt. That hurt when Deontay had that concussion. But
yeah.
Dude,
that's just rotten.
It was so brutal. The first 2 weeks I had Paris Campbell, and then it was week 2 and week 3. Week 2, Paris Campbell ripped his PCL, whatever the hell happened to him. And then Deontay Johnson just out with a concussion. It's like, oh, this is great. Back-to-back weeks. I just got smoked based off injuries, but alas. All right, so Chase Claypool, he played 78 and 73% of snaps the last 2 weeks. I mean, he did run 33% of his routes from the slot. Cleveland has gotten bludgeoned from the slot. We know Juju plays majority of his snaps from the slot, but Claypool does run a little bit there. It's not he's not just an outside player. He's not like a Darius Slayton guy where he only slays on the outside. And like I mentioned, Cleveland's gotten smoked on the slot. Willie Snead, Tyler Boyd, and CeeDee Lamb have all crushed Cleveland from the slot. They've all had 16.4, 20.2, and 25.2 Draftkings points. Like Willie Snead's getting 16.4 points against your slot. I mean, good God, Willie Snead is like the king of dust. I mean, he's up there with like Cole Beasley. I mean, this guy is fun.
He's way dustier than gold.
Chase Claypool is, and I know we're going to talk about his athletic stuff. I mean, he's 6'4", 238, and he runs 4.42. I mean, this guy is, his athleticism is legit like off the charts. He's a second round pick at Notre Dame. He's a rookie, 22 years old. If you guys don't know who he is, but God, I mean, he had 11 targets last week.
Here's the thing: he had 11 targets on 24 routes run.
I know.
And I don't know, man. Is he going to get Denzel Ward? I mean, is he just going to jump into the Deontay Johnson role and they're going to leave Juju in the slot? I mean, maybe he'll run a little bit, but Denzel Ward's a tough task for any receiver, let alone a rookie who I mean, has not played that much. I mean, great athlete, good spot without Deontay. I would like to see his targets. I mean, not his targets, his routes ran a little bit higher. I don't know. I just feel like it's chasing.
No, I completely get it. I completely get it. If Deontay wasn't playing, I would not be anywhere near Chase Claypool. But all the targets that Deontay opens up, I mean, Deontay is like he's the lead target getter. He had 23 targets in the first 2 weeks, and now he's just like basically hasn't even played the last couple. Chase Claypool has a 13.9 ADOT. 0.51 weight opportunity is pretty solid. It's not bad at all for 5,200. And he has 3.3 yards per route ran. That's third best in the NFL.
I mean, I'm not going to fight you. I mean, I think he's a great player.
It's tough.
I mean, routes are just hurting me. I mean, James Washington ran 31 routes last week to Claypool's 24.
Yeah. Right.
Sooner rather than later, I think it's going to be Claypool usurping him, whether or not Deontay's healthy. But I mean, to be honest with you, I could see Pittsburgh just going and stomping Cleveland. I mean, I don't think Cleveland's going to be able to put up much of a fight against this defense. I really don't.
Okay.
I don't know. I think it just leaves a bad taste in my mouth. I'm not that confident with Claypool. I don't want to chase last week, and I know he's probably going to be pretty chalky with the news on Deontay coming out today.
Right. That's the other thing. He's going to be chalky. So
for sure.
Fading these guys that, I mean, if I were to guess, he'll probably be in double ups. He'll probably be 30, 35, somewhere around there. And, fading these elite athletes like that. And if they catch one ball and it goes to the house, I mean, you're in a whole world of hurt. Yeah. Who's your next guy you want to talk about, wide receiver?
So wide receiver, that's it for me.
Okay, I got you. So if we want to run down all of our guys before we head over to the tight end. So quarterbacks, I had Ryan Fitzpatrick and Ryan Tannehill, and you had Stafford and Minshew. I had Mike Davis, Myles Gaskin, and Aaron Jones. I believe you had Madison, Derrick Henry, and Dave Montgomery. Wide receiver, I had Devontae Adams, Terry McLaurin, Chase Claypool. We'll get to two other wide receivers. I know. We didn't talk about two guys that they're in our windmill plays. We'll get to them. And who are your other three wide receivers?
I had Laviska Shenault, Kenny Galladay, and then I spoke about Adam Thielen earlier.
Right. Okay. So at tight end, we're going to run through these pretty quick because tight end is just such blah. But I'm going to go with Mark Andrews. He's the highest priced tight end on the slate. He's 6.5K. but I think he gives you a clear edge at the position this week, at least a 4-point edge. There's no Kelsey on this slate. There's no Kittle. Ertz is total dust. I mean, this guy is just buns at this point. I think I saw Ertz is averaging less than 1 yard per route run. Like he's going. But Mark Andrews, they're on the road, in Philly. Fine. They have a 27 implied total. That's really solid. Yeah, it's really important for tight ends. His ADOT for tight ends is crazy, 13.5. Like he has a 0.5 weight opportunity. It's highest on the slate among tight ends. 1.2 end zone targets per game. We talked about Devontae Adams being at 1.5. 1.2 is absolutely elite, and they have a 27 implied total. And perhaps the biggest reason to play him is the Eagles' defense versus tight ends are absolutely horrid. They give up 19 points per game to opposing tight ends and 86.5 catch rate to opposing tight ends. This is unreal. I mean, that is so bad. The Eagles cannot cover tight ends at all. Mark Andrews is in an absolute smash spot. 6.5K. I love him.
Yeah, I mean, I absolutely love playing guys in the Ravens offense. I mean, as a Ravens fan, when Lamar gets down to the red zone, it's just Mark Andrews, Hollywood Brown. Just flip a coin, who's getting the target.
It's a kinetic target tree.
It's Hollywood or it's Mark Andrews, and we've already seen Mark Andrews elite tight end red zone target share this year. I mean, I believe he's leading the league in touchdowns at the moment at the tight end position.
Yep.
I mean, Philly's defense, I thought they were going to shore up their linebacking core in the draft. They didn't really go that route. And, I mean, it's shown this year so far. I mean, they've given up five touchdowns to tight ends already.
Yep.
I mean, writing's just on the wall. It's just, for me, I don't usually like to pay up a tight end, right? I usually just try to go low price tight end. If I'm going to punt a position, it's going to be tight end. But this week more than ever, I think you're right. You do gain an edge by playing Mark Andrews. He's the only elite tight end on the slate. Yep. I mean, we've got guys like Tanyan at 5,100. I mean, I think Hawkinson's overpriced, John's overpriced, Kasicki's overpriced. I'm not going to pay, mid to low fives for these guys when you can just pay up for Mark Andrews. I'm either going to pay up for him or I'm going to go all the way down.
Yep. And we'll get to that. We'll get to the punt. We love punting tight ends. We both played Adam Troutman a couple weeks ago, and we printed that week too. It doesn't matter. Like anything, tight ends, especially with no Kelsey, no Kelsey slate, tight ends don't even matter. You can just punt it off and just be like, all right, I'll just play minimum price and just call it a day. So who do you like at tight end?
Pay up for the elite running backs and wide receivers. Tight end. So, like I said, I like to go cheap, and this is pretty ugly, admittedly. But Trey Burton at 3,100, I think, is set up in a pretty good spot. I mean, Mo Alley Cox was ruled out today. Now, I know Mo Alley Cox has not been running a lot of routes, like 8 to 10 a game, I think, which is not very much at all. But we have seen Phillip Rivers likes him in the red zone a little bit. The last 2 games for Trey Burton since coming back from the injury, 5 and 6 targets, respectively. The Bengals are not very good against the tight end at all. It's ugly, but man, at 3,100, if you're going to tell me I'm going to get 6 targets, and Phillip Rivers historically just loves going to his tight end. I mean, we've seen his history with Antonio Gates, Hunter Henry. I think one thing to monitor is the snap counts or the routes ran for the tight ends. I think Jack Doyle and Trey Burton are playing about the same allotment of snaps right now, but Jack Doyle's just doing nothing in the passing game. And I mean, we've never really touted Jack Doyle as anything other than a safety blanket. You know what I mean? Yeah. I think he ran 4.9, 140, just a bad athlete. In comparison to Trey Boo Boo, who, I mean, he's a pretty good athlete. He's had trouble staying on the field, but right now he's healthy. And I think if you want to punt the position and just go down to 3,100, I think Trey Burton is as good as you're going to find at that price range.
Yep. Yeah, and he was with Frank Reich in Philly when Frank Reich was there. So he has some connections to Frank Reich. So I think they like him there. He's averaging 5.5 targets per game. 0.38 weight opportunity is fine. Half an end zone target per game. He's 3.1K. That's the thing. You're just punting it off. If you really want to punt it all the way down, if you really want to punt all the way, we're going to go to Irv Smith, and I'll give you the reason why. So Irv Smith is actually a pretty decent prospect. He's from Alabama. His numbers weren't great at Alabama, but like how many tight ends actually have solid numbers coming out of Alabama with all those guys there with Judy and Waddle and all of the guys that they had there, Ruggs, and it's so hard to have an elite target share in that offense, especially as a tight end. But Irv Smith, look, he's 2,500. They're at home. They have a 29 implied total. He actually has a pretty healthy ADOT at 12. Yeah, he's only averaging 3.3 targets per game. Yeah, he's only running 19 routes per game over his last 4. But last week, his routes did jump. I believe he ran 31 routes last week, and I believe Kyle Rudolph only ran 24. So, look, his routes this year have gone from 16, 17, 17, 12, 31. His snap share has gone from 63, 65, 56, 64, 72. And he also had 4 for 64 through the air last week. Yeah, they threw the ball 39 times. They're not going to do that again. But this matchup is unreal. Like I said, they're at home. Massive total. Atlanta has got 8.5 yards per attempt, 21 points per game to opposing tight ends, the worst in the league, an 82.5 catch rate, and their 30th DVOA. This is look, if he gets you 3 for 30, we're fine. It's like 6 points. He's 2.5K. I don't really care.
Yeah, I mean, that's the concern for me, right? Is Kirk Cousins 39 pass attempts is not happening again.
No, he's going to throw the ball about 30 times probably.
I'm projecting him to get up early against Atlanta. I mean, yes, Atlanta's pitiful against tight end, second worst in the league, giving up 21.32 points a game. They've given up 7 touchdowns to tight ends already this year. Yeah. And they're not even near the top of the league in targets. They've only given up 40 targets. I think tops is 54 by the Saints. And I mean, they're just getting crushed. Here's the thing. Yes, Irv Smith's routes did jump, but so did Kyle Rudolph's because of that expanded role for Kirk Cousins, right? If Irv Smith goes back down to running, 12 to 16 routes.
Oh, I know. It's bad. Yeah.
Concern, right? But you know that when you're paying down for a tight end at 2,500. We played out a couple weeks ago at Stone Men, and we still printed. It did not matter.
0 points. It doesn't matter. It's what the player gives you.
If you punt and you play the right plays around them, it's not going to hurt you, right?
Yeah. And if he gets in the box, I mean, that it's a print fest. It is what this podcast is all about. It is a print fest. Look,
here's the thing: if the game script goes well and Atlanta forces Kirk Cousins to throw, they force Mike Zimmer to light a fire in Kirk Cousins' ass, and we get 30, 35 attempts, we're going to be sitting pretty.
Yeah.
If you're going to pay down, he's easily the best play at 2,500 at tight end. No one else is close. I'll talk about someone else later. He's not quite as good, but
So I want one more note here on Atlanta versus tight ends. They let the king of dust, Greg Olsen, go for 4 for 24 and a touchdown on him. Yeah, only 4 for 24, but he did get in the box. They let Dalton Schultz go 9 for 88 and a touchdown. They let Jimmy Graham in the year 2020 go 6 for 60 and 2 touchdowns. And the best of all, they let Bob Tonyan go 6 for 98 and 3. I mean, Chief, what are we talking about here? This defense stinks.
Bobby Tonyan.
Irv Smith, 2,500. His routes jumped last week. They probably won't sustain. Who knows? But he's 2,500. Who do you have?
Sorry, you froze there.
Oh yeah, I was just saying he's just a great play. Who do you have at tight end?
So my other tight end is Eric Ebron, who is at 4,100. So again, with Deontay Johnson out this week, it's going to open up targets for other guys in that offense, right? Browns give up the 6th most fantasy points to tight ends and the 3rd most targets. The Steelers have a 27.5 projected team total, which is pretty freaking high. We've seen Eric Ebron. He's averaged 8 targets a game the past couple weeks. I just think he sets up well with Ben Roethlisberger in this spot. I think the Steelers are not going to have trouble putting up points. And Eric Ebron's a big guy. I mean, we've seen him dominate in the red zone in the past. Yeah, Is it ugly? Yeah, but I mean, the entirety of tight end is ugly this year, as it is most years. And I mean, his 8 outs over 8, which is pretty dang good for tight end.
Yeah.
Um, we haven't really seen Juju develop as a red zone threat at all. Yeah, Claypool's a big guy. James Washington, he sucks. Good at and paying at 4,100. I mean, we're talking about he's around guys like Austin Hooper and those types. I mean, for the price, I think he's absolutely fine. Um, again, it's not sexy, but he's running a lot of routes. So for price per point per dollar, I think he's absolutely fine right now.
Yeah, he's fine. You want to talk about any more tight ends?
Yeah, I'll throw one in here. I'll throw my punt tight end of the week.
Throw another punt in there if people don't want to play Irv Smith. Who you got?
$2,500 Anthony Ferkser for the Tennessee Titans. Now I know it's ugly. I know it's ugly, and I mean we've seen Ferkser just. There's been multiple times in the past where Ferkser gets in the box and I just tilt my face off, man. And I mean for 2,500, I really don't think it's that bad. He's not a very good athlete. I mean 27th percentile 40, 11th percentile speed score, 17th percentile burst. I mean, the guy's not good at football, and he's not running a lot of routes. But here's the thing. The last 2 weeks, he's ran 9 and 14 routes and gotten 4 and 5 targets, respectively. Is that sustainable? Absolutely not, right? I mean, he's getting a target on like a third of his routes. That's not going to happen again. But at 2,500 in a game that has it's projected to be a pretty fast pace of play, it could be a shootout. And I mean, he's gotten three for 19 and 4 for 45 the last 2 weeks. At 2,500, that's fine. If you want to pivot off Irv Smith, he's absolutely fine. I'm by no means saying this guy is a lock or should be in your cash lineup, but if you want to punt, you can't really do worse than that for the price.
Yeah. I mean, I lean Irv Smith there, but if you don't like Irv Smith, you want to punt, first is fine. All right, so we're going to get that's all of our plays. Position by position. We're going to get to our two favorite plays, our Odell Beckham, our windmill plays, if you will. And I'm gonna start, and I think we are both locking this player in. This guy he's right on the wall behind you there. This guy is one of the best players in the NFL. He's one of the best up and coming stars. He's on my dynasty team. We're talking about AJ Brown. This guy's an absolute stud. I mean, what's he like 6'2", 228? Like this guy he's a mammoth to bring down. He's like basically impossible to tackle. Look, in his 2 games in 2019 versus Houston, he went 8 for 114 and 1 and 4 for 124 and 1. He's 5,600. They didn't move his price, I guess, because they played on Tuesday night. On Tuesday night, he had 7 for 82 on 9 targets and a touchdown. He is, like I said, 5,600, fastest pace total or fastest pace game on the slate here in a potential shootout here with Houston. They're at home, 28 total. He's averaging, like I said, 8.5 targets. He had 8 in week 1, and then he had that bone bruise. He was out for a couple weeks, and they had COVID. They couldn't play. He had 9 last week. His weight opportunity over his last 4 is 0.64. Like I said, he's only played 2 games. His yards per run is 3.2. I mean, that is absolutely elite. He's averaging 1 end zone target per game, and the matchup with Houston is fine. And they're giving up 38 points per game to opposing wide receivers, a 70.7 catch rate. Again, league average is right around 66, so this is really solid. This guy, he can take one to the house. We all know he can do it. He's going to take a slant route, and he's an absolute animal after the catch. He cannot be tackled. 5,600. Just lock in AJ Brown. If you want to, you can stack him with Ryan Tannehill.
I mean, I can't imagine fading AJ Brown cash this week. I mean, if you fade AJ Brown, you're paying the rig.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just an absolute beast, and I think him playing on Tuesday night was just a blessing for us.
Yeah.
5,600. You got to be kidding me. That is just a gross miss.
That's disrespectful.
That is disrespectful. I mean, come on, man. You got him priced under Jameson Crowder. Come on. I know Crowder's been good, but whatever. You know what I'm saying. I mean, I just cannot imagine in this game environment, in a game that we project to shoot out, Corey Davis isn't going to play. I mean, Ryan Tannehill just loves AJ Brown. We saw the end of last year and in the playoffs. I mean, the dude's just dominant. We saw it on Tuesday night. He just absolutely dominated a good secondary in Buffalo. I mean, I just can't imagine just
Just
not
like
locking
just,
on. I mean,
just lock it
he's
in.
gonna put up like 7 for 140 and 2, and you're just gonna print, dude. I mean,
And he's off the injury report. His knee is no longer an issue. He's not on the injury report anymore. He practiced in full. He's good to go.
he is. And I mean, again, there's no Corey Davis. Not that that matters. And I think Adam Humphries on the COVID list too. I mean, it's just all smash spot. I mean, just
Yeah,
lock him in. He's on the wall behind me for a reason.
yeah.
Just
Lock him in. Windmill play of the week, number one. Who's your windmill play of the week? And we'll close it out here.
so don't like him quite as much as AJB, but I do think that Allen Robinson suits up for a massive, massive game here. The last 3 weeks, ever since Nick Foles took over, he's had 13, 10, and 16 targets in those games. That is absolutely elite.
He's an out.
Absolutely. Anthony Miller seems to have gotten caught by Darnell Mooney, who's a rookie.
He did.
And we see Darnell Mooney, he's the min, Stone min 3K. And I think Darnell Mooney's fine, but like who else is getting targets in this offense? I don't believe in this Jimmy Graham nonsense as good as he's been this year. I mean, A-Rob's got a .69 Whopper, which is great. I mean, he's averaging an end zone target every single game. I mean, I just think yes, he is 7K. You're gonna have to pay up for him, right?
Yep.
But I think he's just in a windmill spot. Like I don't see a way that I mean, he's gonna come out of this game with 12, 13 targets. I could see him going, 9 for 120.
I
And
don't
he's
think
just
gonna,
Nick Foles. Nick Foles just loves him. They have a great connection. I mean, Carolina's been pretty good against the pass, but I think Reeves was saying this last week. They're just kind of lining up in shell defense and they're making sure that they're not getting beat over top because they know they can't rush the passer.
yeah.
So they're not going to go big plays. But I mean, if you're just going to give me, A-Rob, 13 intermediate routes and maybe get a nice end zone target or two. I mean, I just think it's
Yeah.
a smash. There's so many great receiver plays on this slate. You can't play all of them, obviously, but I mean, if you want to pivot off the chalk of Devontae Adams, or I think Adam Thielen is going to be pretty chalky at 7,300. I think Allen Robinson is a great, great pivot.
Especially because Dave Montgomery is sure to have some decent ownership. He's a great leverage playoff. Dave Montgomery and Devontae Adams. He's 1,000 cheaper than Devontae Adams, and you pretty much hit the nail on the head. I mean, the dude's averaging 12 targets per game over his last 4. That is easily the highest on the slate. It's 2 higher than Devontae Adams. I mean, and he's an absolute alpha. He is the best. He's probably a top 10 wide receiver for sure in the league, maybe even top 5. He just needs some better quarterback play. We've been trying to get him the better quarterback since his days at Penn State with Christian Hackenberg. It's like, good God. If he had league average quarterback play, the guy would be a top 2 wide receiver in the league with Devontae Adams and Michael Thomas.
Yeah, I mean, he's just a monster, big body. I mean, I mean, he's probably going to be getting followed around by Rasul Douglas this week. Yeah, he's been pretty decent, but I mean, that's not going to keep me off A-Rob. I really don't care about that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, he gave up 6 for 30 to Hopkins, 4 for 51 to Mike Evans. I don't really want to look in that too much. I mean, at the end of the day, do I believe in Carolina's defense? No. There's no target competition for A-Rob.
Yep.
So, I mean, I just think he's a great pivot point off Montgomery, who's going to be chalky, off the other chalky high-priced receivers, and Adams, Ridley, Thielen.
Yep.
So,
I like it. So 2 windmill plays a week: AJ Brown and Allen Robinson.
I can't imagine not playing AJ Brown.
I think Mike Davis, I think Alexander Madison, I think AJ Brown. I think you lock those 3 in and you move on from there.
I agree.
If there's any other locks from there, there's some other really strong plays, and I think we hit them all over this last hour or so. that's going to do it for the first episode of the Printfest DFS pod. You can find myself on Twitter. It's at my same name. So it's at Justin Rue. So it's JUSTINRAU, and it'd be 23 on the end. And Scott, you want to hit them with your Twitter there?
Yeah, man. Thanks for listening to the first pod. I mean, you can find me on Twitter at S_Bandy13. Last name is BANDY. Yeah, hit us up, and we're looking forward to the slate this weekend in the coming weeks.
Yeah,
hopefully no interruptions this week, right?
yeah. Hit us up in the comments with any questions you got, or if you have like a 1v1 or 2v2 or any kind of comments, anything like that. So just, yeah, we're happy you guys listened, and that's gonna do it for the Printfest, for the Printfest DFS pod. And don't fade AJ Brown. All right, see ya.